DIY Dave, and today we're going to tackle a slightly different project. We're going to work on changing the oil on this 2015 Lexus ES 350. This has the same V6 engine in the Toyota Sienna from 2008. And this should be not a difficult project to do, but we're going to do it a little bit differently than we've done some of our oil changes in the past. Ordinarily, when we've done these, we've been using a regular floor jack and jack stands to jack up the car. But today we're going to use something a little different. We picked up a pair of these drive-up ramps that will support, for a pair of these, will support about 6,000 pounds of weight on the front. And it's a little less of a hassle than setting up the jacks and the jack stands and making sure you put the jack in the right spot underneath the car. We're going to drive up the car those in just a second. For the rest of this oil change, what we have here are the basics for some 0W20 motor oil. And this particular variety is called SuperTech. Now, when I first saw SuperTech, I was very skeptical, thought it was just a no-name knockoff brand, but I did a little research and found out that it's actually a very well thought of oil. It meets or exceeds all the relevant specs for some of the bigger name oils, and I've used it in some of my other cars, and I've been very happy with it. So, and it's considerably cheaper than some of the major brands. This is the original OEM Toyota oil filter for this particular vehicle. We'll put the model number on the graphics. They'll come up in just a moment. You need a 14mm socket to get the drain pan off. We've got a official Toyota cartridge wrench removal tool. This particular car has, rather than an oil filter, a single cartridge oil filter, it has an insertable filter that goes inside a permanent cartridge attached to the engine. And this guy will we use this to get the filter out of this car and out of the Corolla and out of the Lexus. That's the beauty of the Toyota products. A lot of things are interchangeable. That's and then we've got a 14mm open-end wrench to get the bolt off, the oil drain pan bolt off. We've got your basic gloves, and we've got a reservoir to drain the oil into, and then we've got wheel chocks for the back, a funnel for new oil, and shop towels because I'm a mess. So with that, this shouldn't take long, so let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, now one thing we're going to do is we're going to set these wheel ramps up. And since this is a little bit different from just using a regular floor jack, we're going to make sure that we set these up correctly. When you set these ramps up, you want to center these ramps underneath the tire when it comes up. When this thing goes up, the tire will grab the ramp, hold it down, and the car will immediately start going up, so we should be able to clear that edge. This will act as a bit of resistance, so when the car drives up the ramp, you'll know when to stop. Otherwise, you'll go flying across the ramp, and that's a bad thing. But the most important thing is to make sure these things are centered underneath the center of the tire as best you can, and don't get them crooked. Make sure they're straight, parallel to the sides of the tire. One thing also, make sure that the particular ramps that you get are rated for the weight of your vehicle. 4 of these are rated to hold 12,000 pounds. Now, I'm only using 2, and so they're going to be rated for 6,000 pounds. That's well beyond what this car weighs, so we should be completely safe. These ramps were available at Walmart for about 40 bucks, a little less, but plus or minus with tax in your area. We're going to see how these work out. And again, if you don't have this, go ahead and use a regular floor jack, center the plate of the jack underneath the center of the main cross member across the frame of your car, jack it up, and slide jack stands and let the car rest on the jack stands if you don't choose to use the ramps. I'm looking forward to using these because most of the stuff that I do is oil changes. I don't have to access the wheels, and this should save me setup time. So we're going to see how these work. Now, once you've got them on the ramps, you still want to be sure to set the parking brake. That's secured. Turn the car off. The wheel chocks. One under there. And one under there. And we are good to go. Okay, we got the car on the ramps. One thing I noticed once I got on the ramps, I think the traction of the tire actually tried to pull the ramp back a little bit, because when I got out, the tail end of the ramp was up a little bit. So I backed it off a little bit, and really all I did was release the parking brake and then reset it. So now the ramps lay nice and flat. The tire appears to be pretty close to centered on the ramp, and I think we're good. Okay, we are underneath the car. I'm going to go ahead and slide our oil reservoir under here. This is a really nice 10-quart reservoir I picked up at Walmart. I think it was like $10 or $12, and virtually all of the oil disposal places will take that and empty it for you and recycle the oil no charge, and it eliminates the mess. So step one, we're going to go ahead and take our 14mm ratchet, and we're going to get this guy off of here. Yeah, that was just tight enough. Perfect. And that oil really looks nice. It may be a little bit difficult to see.
You're spilling a little bit on this side.
Thank you. Now, just looking at this oil, it still has a nice gold quality to it, as it's not very dirty. This is now at exactly a 5,000 mile change. I know there's a lot of different recommendations about oil, and some of the manufacturers will tell you that you can go 10,000 miles between oil changes, and I'm not sure if I totally go along with that. When I was first taught to change oil in cars, I was taught to do it at 3,000 miles. And as I got older and oils improved, that bumped up to maybe 5,000 miles. And that's my preferred intervals, 5,000 miles, even with the new full synthetic oils. If I let an oil change go to 7,500, I don't like it, but that's as far as I care to push it. I don't like to go 10,000 miles on an oil change, even if the manufacturer says you can. And to me, it's one of those things where it's penny wise and pound foolish to avoid spending 30 or 40 bucks on such a simple maintenance item, especially something that can fairly readily be done on your own. So we're going to let this thing drain. I got to pull this guy back because it's already starting to thin out. But in this case, this oil did not look bad. This was changed when I got this car. I bought this car used about 6 months ago, and I put my first 5,000 miles on it. It had been changed by the previous by the dealership that owned it, and I could tell then that it was new oil when I checked it when I bought it. And this oil still looks like it's in good shape. And it could probably have gone a while longer, but as I said before, I didn't see any point in waiting. Of all the things you can do to a car, changing the oil is cheap insurance to make it last as long as you can. So we're going to go ahead and let that drain. That'll take a few more minutes to get the very end of that oil out of there. So we'll come back as soon as this is finished draining and get the filter out.
Go.
Okay, through the magic of video, we've spent about, I guess, 10 minutes, maybe 15, watching this thing drain. It's down to dripping at about the rate of 1 every 2 seconds. It could do this for a long time, and that basically means that we've got this thing down to about as much as we can practically get out of it. If we wanted to wait here another hour, we maybe get another 2 or 3 ounces, but I'm not sure it's really worth waiting. So we're going to go ahead and call this good. We're going to put a little bit of that oil back on the threads of the bolt, and we're going to put that drain bolt back in. I'm going to start this by working backwards just a little bit to feel the thread lock in, and then gently hand tighten it, because you don't want to cross thread that bolt. Get it hand tight, and then we'll take our 14mm wrench, and through the magic of video, we'll put on the appropriate factory spec for the appropriate torque for this bolt. But there's really no reason to make this gorilla tight. Make it good and tight to your hand, and then maybe just a little bit beyond. But that's more than adequate to keep it from leaking. And we'll check it for leaks when we're all said and done. So just put back on that one last time, give it a good wrench, and that's nice and tight. Now, the next part here is the filter. Here's why I think it's a little bit over-engineered. What they want you to do is, old oil filters used to be a single canister, a single hard metal canister that threaded onto a little shaft, and you replace them in total. Well, I presume to minimize the amount of waste. I suppose that's one possible objective. They replaced it with this molded mechanism that is a permanent cartridge, permanent container, and all you do is replace the literal filter medium inside. What they want you to do, this cartridge housing is two pieces. It's this outer housing, and then there's this inner housing. And what they want you to do is to take this little tool that comes with the official OEM Toyota filter kit, take your wrench and loosen this inner ring and drain the oil that's still sitting in the filter with this little handy dandy filter tool. And it slides right up in there and it lets you shunt out the half a quart or a third of a quart of oil that's sitting in the filter. Now, in theory, that's really nice. That's a great idea. The problem is that what you have to do is use an amount of torque on this inner ring that is enough to loosen it without applying so much torque that you go ahead and loosen the whole mechanism anyway. Well, in practical real-world terms, most shops, if you have a shop that does this oil or if a garage does it for you, they're not going to get that particular. They're sure not going to go to the trouble of putting in this little extra ring and this little extra drain thing and then replace the seal that goes on the back of this ring because it ends up taking the whole thing off. I personally tried it one time and found it to be such a nuisance that it wasn't worth it. So what I do is I just take my basic oil filter wrench, the Toyota oil filter wrench, put it on here and take the whole canister off. Now, if you choose to do it the other way, you certainly can, but I choose not to. That didn't work out so well. Now once again, whoever changed the oil on this car previously put this on Gorilla Tight. There we go. Just about wrap my knuckles around that. So here it comes. We're almost all ready loose. Now again, if you want to avoid some of this a little additional drippy stuff that's the oil that's coming out of here, you can go ahead and try to take that inner ring off. Totally up to you. But if you've got a nice catch basin and you know it's coming, I just don't see the point. And I always advocate if you can get the original Toyota OEM grade filters, I certainly recommend that you get them. And I'll tell you one thing I will specifically not recommend. I will definitely recommend that you not put a Fram oil filter in anything of any mechanical value that you have. Some of the Fram filters, and in fact you can look on YouTube and you can see some videos on this, that the interior of some of these Fram filters is basically doesn't even qualify as toilet paper. The stuff shreds under pressure and it can only tear up your engine. So if you have the option, if you have the opportunity to pick up Toyota, an OEM filter for your vehicle, I would recommend that you do it, or go to a better quality third-party brand. STP makes good filters. Wix, there are several companies that make good quality filters. I just stay the heck away from Fram. I was able to get this OEM filter for this engine at Walmart for $6.47. And that to me was a steal. That made it a no-brainer. Good enough for Toyota, it's good enough for me. So, we're going to go ahead and wipe this guy off. Oh, thank you. Now, one thing that's important to do when you do this replacement, and we're going to make sure that we see this up, there is a gasket that goes around the cartridge. Notice that this gasket is inset in a little ridge, a little detent in this ridge, in this filter, in the filter housing where this gasket sets. When we take this off, replace it with the new filter, with the new filter's ring, we want to make sure that it sits in the right place. It's very easy to get tricked into thinking that it goes around the base of the filter cartridge or on one of these other ridges. You put it in the wrong place, it's not going to work right, it's going to leak. That's a bad thing. So we're going to go ahead and pull the old filter out. put that in the box.
You haven't taken the other one out yet.
Taking one. Oh, thank you, Matthew. My son points out that I had not yet taken the old filter out of the package. Very good. So here's our new filter. Put that in there like unto so. So we're going to take this old filter off, the old ring, the old gasket off. And here in the package is the new ring. Now these are harder to open up when you've got a glove, when you're wearing gloves that are covered in oil. There we go. So we'll just take a little small amount of oil. We'll just put a little bit on that gasket. And again, we're going to aim for this ring right here. Don't want to put that in the wrong spot. There. Easy peasy. Alright, now all we got to do is put her back. And again, to make sure you don't cross thread this, I will put it on the shaft and I will rotate it counterclockwise just a little bit until I can feel that thread engage. Once I feel that thread engage, then I'll slowly turn it clockwise and it's going in really easily, and that's your first indication that you've got to go in the right direction and it's not cross-threaded. It shouldn't resist at all.
This tiny one for?
Huh? That tiny one is what goes in this. Now, in the package, this is what my son just pointed out. What's this small filter? What's this small gasket for? If I replace that little interior, that smaller relief for the drain valve, the interior drain valve, there's a gasket that goes across it that I would replace if I change that up. But since I didn't take that off, I'm not going to replace that gasket. Good question. There we go. Inside, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it says right here it's embossed, tightened to 25 Newton meters. I said foot-pounds, it's Newton meters. Don't mind me. See, that's how you learn. Thought it said foot-pounds, but it's 25 Newton meters. So here is our handy-dandy torque wrench. We will loosen the bolt and then we will turn this guy. Okay, we had a little trouble with the torque wrench, so I had to brake for just a moment, but we've got it set to 25 Newton meters and we're going to go ahead and apply this. See that? It's already broken. 25 Newton meters is just not that much force. And this thing was so hard, it practically broke my knuckles when I broke it off the first time. If you notice, when we took it off, it took several revolutions to even get the oil that was just sitting in the filter to start leaking out. So if you think of how much more force you are once you get to hand tight, plus the force to get it to 25 Newton meters, this thing's not going to leak. But we'll check it as soon as we're done. So we're all done out down here below. So the next thing we're going to do is just we're going to clean up some of our mess. Pull our drain pan out of the way. Filter is on, cap is on, filter housing is back on. We're in good shape. All we got to do now is put in the fresh oil. Okay, all we've got to do now is refill the oil into the oil filler hole here on the top of the car. One of the things I do like to have is a dedicated filter that I know that I just put oil in. It probably isn't that critical, but sometimes if you refill with maybe transmission fluid or wiper fluid and use a funnel for it, you get different fluids in there, and you got to make sure you keep it clean. I try to use this one just for oil. That way it doesn't matter, but that's just a personal preference. what we're going to do is, as I said before, on this particular engine, a full change with filter is 6.4 quarts for this guy, so it'll take 2 of those big 5-quart cans. And notice, the rating on the filter cap tells you exactly the weight of oil, SAE 0W20. Interesting thing is, this exact same engine, as I mentioned before, is in our 2008 Toyota Sienna. The exact same engine, it's rated for 5W30. But this guy went 0W20. It's a 7-year newer engine and can handle the slightly thinner oil. So we put that in there like unto so. And notice that you can't pour this in here too fast. If you'll notice, as you go in here, there's a little bit of a baffle. And if you try to pour oil in here full tilt, it's going to gush out everywhere and it's going to make an unholy mess. So you're going to have to be patient, even with a funnel in there. The interior under the hood of this thing, like I said, I got this used. It's about 3.5 years old. I got it in January, and it's pristine under the hood. And I'd like to try to keep it that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a little extra insurance right here underneath the neck of the filler. This filler funnel. And again, since you've got that little baffle plate, you can't pour it in here too fast, or else it will spill everywhere and make a mess. So you just have to be patient. Now, if you've never done this before, one thing you can notice on the side of these bottles, most all of these large 5-quart bottles have a little legend on the side that can tell you how much is left in the quart. How much is left in the bottle. They'll have liters on one side, quarts on the other. Now, we've already done one 5-quart jug. We need to put in a little bit less than 1.5 additional quarts. So somewhere we'll go from a full 5 down to about just under 4. To get that additional 1 4/10 quarts in there. As a comparison, if you can see this is full 5 quarts. That's not exactly level. Let's put that here. Yeah, here we go. Full 5 quarts, so we're going to get it down to just under the 4-quart level. We'll check it and then we'll top it off. Now this is where you want to be additionally careful, because you definitely don't want to overfill it. In fact, if you were really persnickety about it, you could get a separate container, fill in exactly a quart to a 1 1/4, and then put that from the container in there. So. Okay, we're almost. Not quite to the first full quart. Quart's on the right side of that legend. Here's 3 quarts, here's 4 quarts, 4.5 is right here. We don't need a full 1/2 quart, so we're looking at right here in that range. Is that all much more that we would need? So we're going to go ahead and make sure that's all nice and clean. We didn't spill any, yay. Okay, now we'll go ahead and put the cap on there. What I want to do is start her up and check for leaks. Okay. Now we're going to get under here. Get that little. There's our drain pan bolt. There's our filter housing. And we'll just watch it here for a little bit. I think we're good. I don't see any leaks. We don't want to top off and take a reading on our dipstick with the car elevated and at a cockeyed angle like this. So what we're going to do is we'll take the chocks off the back of the wheels, roll them off of the ramps, and then we will take a reading off the dipstick with it level. And then we will adjust the final fill and we'll be done. Okay, we've got the chocks removed from the back of the wheels, and I'm releasing the parking brake. Now we're going to slowly roll it off of the ramps. Easy peasy. Now we're going to let the car sit for just a second. Now what I want to do, I'm going to take the dipstick here and we're going to clean it off, because that initial reading is going to have oil at a cockeyed angle. And what we want, when we get this back in here, we want to see oil in between these two dots on the dipstick. They're maybe a little hard to see on the video. Sometimes the reflection will make them hard to see. But there's a little dent, a little dimple in that stick right there, and it's dimple right there. We want the range of fluid or oil to be inside that range. Okay. That may be a little hard to see. It's much easier to see on this side. We are right smack in the middle. That's exactly where you want it. Ideally, it should be right in the middle. It may be a little hard to see on the dipstick, on the video, but the fluid level is right between those two dimples, right smack in the middle, where my thumbnail is right there. We're good to go. We don't need to do anything. So folks, this job is done. Okay, now, the very last thing we've got to do is to reset the maintenance required light on this beast. So here's how we do this. First of all, turn the power on. It's not there's maintenance required. So now what we'll do is, now that you see the maintenance required on there, you come over here to the odometer, the trip odometer button, and you press it until you see trip A displayed. This is the regular full car odometer. We switch it to trip A, and now with trip A reading.
Oh, I'm at an awkward angle.
Okay. It says trip A. Turn the car off. Press in and hold the trip reset button, and then press the start and stop engine button twice. 1, 2. Now it says resetting maintenance data. The dashes on the odometer flash, it's all zeros. Now it's reset and we're done. Like I said, oil changes are one of the simplest things anybody can do, and probably the single most important thing they can do to make a car last as long as it possibly can. Everything else, we had great success with these ramps. They greatly simplify the hassle of rolling out a big floor jack, and it's a great thing to have if you know you're not going to need to work on the wheels. If you don't have to take the wheels off, you're not worried about looking at brakes. Roll them up on your ramps. Drive slowly when you crawl up those ramps. Don't put don't put the foot on the floor and go flying across. Don't pull an Evel Knievel on your driveway. But once you get up there, it makes it really easy to work on, easy access. Check your torque on your filter cartridge, refill it, check your level, and you're done. We did this in about an hour, maybe a little less. I think that's going to wrap it up for now. Thanks very much for watching. Leave comments, questions, concerns on the bottom. And if you'd like to, please feel free to subscribe. We put these videos out whenever I get a chance. And again, I'm no mechanic. I just do it myself and try to save a little money and hope to share a little bit of information along the way. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.